it's a crazy time right now for fundraisers. Not only is the coronavirus scary, we have issues with our economy, and there's continued political turmoil. And any one of these three issues, could be a disaster in and of itself for your fundraising. And here we are experiencing all three at once. So it begs a lot of questions. What are we doing as fundraisers? So digital engagement at this time has become more important than ever. By developing and implementing a comprehensive digital strategy, you can reach out to more alumni with the same budget and engage them in more relevant ways. So John, if you advance to slide 2. Engagement precedes donation. That's like the basis 101 version that we're taught in fundraising. In order to ask someone for a gift, you want to engage them first. And the donor engagement cycle includes that engagement, then the ask, a thank you, and then you repeat the process. So we're just going to expand on some of those, go through some of those ways to enhance that during this time of uncertainty. And for anyone who's questioning about whether our donor fan bases are interested in engaging at this time, John, if you'll advance to slide 3. According to a Deloitte article in 2020, from an article called Say Goodbye to the Off-Season, more than 60% of fans say that having a great year-round experience would make them more likely to be engaged with their team in the coming season. And now with our forced break in play, this has not dimmed. And the passion for fans, it's even greater. And with this period of facing questions, until live events resume, these fans are looking for somewhere to turn to congregate. And so we take an example, slide 4, of ESPN putting on The Last Dance. They moved, because of engagement demands, ESPN moved up the airing of this program by 2 months and to fill that void left by sports. And the premiere night of this program averaged 6.1 million viewers, which in some cases had out-viewership even the Super Bowl. So once this postponement is over, people are even likely to be more engaged from some of the steps that you're doing now during this time. And some of these sporting events will bring huge new numbers of fans because of what you're doing online now. So that's where they are still craving that engagement. So if we advance to slide 5, we'll talk about some of the ways that you can use digital content to develop some of those meaningful connections. And again, so most people might think that your donors are going to get annoyed from hearing from you frequently, but retention and repetition is part of what makes marketing in general successful. And for those of you who have coached before, like recruiting student athletes, one message sent randomly is easy to ignore, but if you follow up with those emails and continue to give the student athlete content and selling your program, you're more likely to maybe yield a visit or yield an application, or better yet, yield that top recruit that you're looking for. It's the same with fundraising. So at Wesleyan, what we've tried to do is we're looking at this time as a challenge to virtually engage, to use what we have available to us in our toolbox to stand out from others, especially within our institution, because here at our school, and just to give you a little bit of history, for fundraising, even though my position reports to the advancement office, athletic fundraising is substantially separate from advancement, and the athletic department and the athletic director and the coaches are responsible for their own fundraising to bridge the gap between the operation budgets that the institution gives them and their operating costs. Approximately 1/3 of their operating costs are from the budgeted from the university. Another third they bring in from generating income through facility rentals and camps, which are obviously impacted right now. We have not been able, since the pandemic shutdown, we have not been able to operate a camp, and it's still a question whether we'll be able to start generating income this fall. So we've lost the entire summer to generate income, which is our peak season. So because people are spending more and more time at home and online, this channel provides a great way to engage fans. So John, if you can advance to the next slide. So because of current events, we look beyond the traditional mediums to tell our Wesleyan athletic story, trying to show the real power of sport and being able to deliver value and happiness and not just entertainment. That's especially what's needed most during this time. So like some discussions in some previous Hartwell podcasts that we've had, talking about the value of athletics as an investment in the residential experience of the student athlete, and as a tool to amplify the education already happening on campus and in the classroom. That's what we need to try and pivot to now, and that's what we're trying to do at Wesleyan, to show that value in our communications, so that when folks are asked, either by advancement or by our athletic staff, to make a gift, they will make that connection, see the value, and say, yes, this is worthy of my investment. So particularly I'm showing what we did with our football program. Every June they have a campaign called the All-In Challenge. And that is a challenge by the coach. He solicits his alumni to make gifts, which he will match with a gift. And in the language of the email, we wanted to highlight more of this value that Wesleyan football provides to the community, and not just the needs of the program in and of itself. So we made the needs secondary, and we added that to the bottom of the email. And I will share this email text in the resources that John will provide after the presentation, so you can see it a little bit more closely. John, the next slide. So determining what content you want to share will help inform what medium you're going to use, whether it's social, Zoom, email, that best would help drive your audience engagement. Other institutional areas are looking to pivot and take advantage of this shift as well. So standing out is key for you. You got to find out and think to yourself, what makes your program different? Athletics is inherently different than in classroom or some of the other institutional priorities for fundraising. So use those resources that you have and what you know works best with your audience. So for us at Wesleyan, being the small Division III college program that we are, and in a league, the New England Small College Athletic Conference, which even has more restrictive rules than Division III, we had to look at our situation to see what we could leverage digitally to take advantage of this craving for content. So we're using Zoom events. We have coaches who are, like many schools, are putting up throwback contests, but with a little twist is that we're not just playing the contests, but we are having coaches provide feedback and insight into what they were thinking, why they called this play, maybe sort of like a huddle clip from some of the technology that they use in their classrooms to teach their student athletes. We're using that to have these intimate conversations with alumni and fans on what the coach was thinking during that period of time. Similarly, like this presentation, we're going to use interviews and podcasts with high-profile alumni, especially those that have a connection to sport. Some of our high-profile student athletes and high-profile coaches to and promote them so that people can view, and we can generate some viewership, and then that viewership would help with some of the other ways that we're engaging with folks. So another angle for us, especially with the parent group, is the post-life after Wesleyan, and that's just as true with student athletes. So we've been leveraging our alumni network for career advice, having panels. Not only does it engage the alumni in participating on these things, but it also engages the current students, provides value in what we're doing for them as a student athlete at our institution, but it's also showing those parents who are also donating to our programs, the value of being a student athlete, because they have these opportunities that are not necessarily available to the regular student body. So when it comes to events, moving to a digital mindset doesn't always have to be comfortable. I'm not the most comfortable doing this presentation right now. I don't do them all the time, but it is helpful, and it's worth the effort. So when circumstances demand the need, it's a good excuse to give it a try, and that's what's worthy now. I mean, you can always experiment. If it doesn't work out, no one's been harmed, but the benefit of it being successful far outweighs the uncomfortableness of putting one on. So if we can advance to slide 8, John, and we'll talk about some of the stewardship and donor relations. In some instances, stewardship and donor relations are just as valuable, if not in some cases more valuable, than being a gift officer. The industry standard says that if you need to thank someone 8 times before you ask them for another gift. And stewardship and donor relations are a perfect way to be able to do that. It's not just a gift comes in and they get your donor gets a acknowledgement from the advancement office. Their gift was to you and your program. So let's leverage that connection of you and having a personal connection to that donor to also help with donor relations. And at what we employ at Wesleyan is we get a weekly list of all of the gifts made to any one of our priorities in athletics. And that list includes the email address and a snail mail address for that donor and what they gave to. We dissect those lists and we send them to each head coach for their giving, and then they in turn send a thank you note that's produced within the athletics department, but the coach writes a personal thank you or makes a personal note at the bottom of the letter, and it gets mailed off. It saves the coach from having to do that in-house, but it still has personalization of their few lines scribbled at the bottom. Certain $500 and above, the person also gets an acknowledged letter from the athletic department. But during these uncertain times, one of the things we've added to our process is, in my role, I've added sending them an email with language thanking them for their gift during these uncertain times and how humbled we are that they decided to invest in us when they have so many other possible things going on in their lives. And I will add that as a resource for John to send out. It's just an added way of stewarding our donors who are already engaged with us and keeping them engaged with us to make gifts again. So Roger Craver, as I mentioned show you in this slide, he wrote a book called Retention Fundraising. And these statistics, and we're all statistics people in athletics, are very interesting. That the average nonprofit has 60 to 70% chance of obtaining additional contributions from existing donors. So then, of course, I make the segue to Moneyballers, and who hasn't seen that movie, that we go with the data, what the data tells us. So it's cheaper in the long run to put some efforts into existing donors and to get them to be repeat donors than it is necessary to spend the effort to acquire new donors, because it takes more time. It might seem easier to acquire new donors than it is to steward existing donors, but the effort is clearly in the data that shows it's worth that effort. So John, if we can advance to slide 9. So these are some of those acknowledgments that I was talking about these simple efforts in increasing your donor relations will create a more meaningful prospect and donor relationship. And that's what advancement and donor relations is all about. It's about relationships. You know this already with recruiting. You make that relationship with a prospective student athlete. If it's a deeper relationship, you have a better chance of yielding that student athlete. It's the same with donors. The deeper relationship you have with the donor, the easier the conversation is, the more you can talk to them specifically about what your concerns are. And especially now in these uncertain times, we are most of us here at Wesleyan, we know we've had a 10% reduction in our operating budget already this year. We had to give back 10%. We know next year that we are going to lose another 10% of our operating budget and also be hamstrung by our inability to generate income. So this is no mystery, and folks know that these things are happening across higher ed. So it's okay to have those conversations with donors that you have a good relationship with. That's not something you would necessarily send in a broadcast email to your entire alumni body, but it's something that you would discuss one-on-one or in small groups with some of your existing donors. So some of the other ways that you can also leverage donor relations with donors is a first-time donor campaign. So what we do here at Wesleyan, I have these little postcards, and every time a person makes a gift for the first time, and I get this information from our advancement office, we ship out a little postcard that says, thank you for taking the first step in becoming part of the Wesleyan Athletics donor family. And it has a little kitschy photo of someone running stadium stairs, hence the step. But it's effective. I get comments back from folks about these postcards. It takes minimal effort. It's 23 cents, I think, to send the postcard. So these are just little things that you can do to augment what advancement is doing or what you're already doing to take it to the next step. Consecutive donor loyalty initiatives is another way. You have donors already that you can engage with now that have been consecutive donors, and thank them for their loyalty. That's another touch. Another area that we're exploring for the first time this year is corporate matching gifts. I had a Zoom conference call with our department this morning. We talked about our June plans for fundraising. And one of the areas that we're going to emphasize for people who have already made a gift to Wesleyan Athletics is the opportunity to match their already donation with an employer-sponsored match gift. And again, it's not asking them to dig into their pocket. It's asking them to take some time that they might already have for being home and initiate that process with their company to see if we're eligible. So those are some of the things that you can do now using digital engagement to further connect with your audience. Impact reports are another one. It's nice for a donor to hear from the area from which they are supporting how the impact of their gift has made a difference in their program. We have a unique ability in athletics to demonstrate our impact a lot easier than an annual fund office where it kind of goes into a black hole. You can send from the basketball coach an email saying, this is what your gifts supported this year. It's very simple to do, and it lets the donor know how their money is being used. That's impactful. We here at Wesleyan, we do a thank you calling program with our student athletes. Every fall, particularly during preseason when before school starts, I have a handful of student athletes come in from each team, and they call donors who made gifts to the program last year. There's no reason why you can't do that already this year now with the donors. You don't have to wait until next season starts. You can do that now. Again, it keeps them in the mindset of athletics during a time in June when they are going to get solicited by your school. We're also considering using a new software program that will help us send thank you videos. There's several out there on the market. We're particularly, I'm not not necessarily going to mention the one that we're using, but we are going to try to use that in another way to digitally engage with our constituents. Video's king, we know that already, and this is just another way to build that. And I'm hoping eventually that the investment in that for fundraising can also help recruiting for you ADs out there that are looking to get some bang for your buck. I think coaches could also use these thank you platforms, video platforms for their recruiting as well. So hit me up on LinkedIn if you want more information on what we're doing there. But there's also, you know, using another voice besides advancement, and that's the coach, the athletic director, someone in my position. I'm the only one in this role at Wesleyan, so I don't have a staff like some of the big D1 schools or some of the D2 schools. So we're looking to leverage what we have now on the cheap to get the most out of what we can possibly do. And Zoom is an enterprise product on our campus, and so we're trying to use it to our best advantage. So in conclusion, John, the next slide, simply because the economy appears to be in free fall, you don't want to make assumptions what your donors will and will not do during this time, or what they can or cannot give. You need to ask for what you need, but you need to ask in a way that takes into consideration what the donor might be going through at this time. Your needs have increased and so have theirs. But you can let your donors know that they'll understand. Don't be shy. I would not hold back, especially for the folks that you do have good relationships with. Some will retreat, but others will step up. Some are going to pull back, but there will be others that surprise you and step up. So the results at the end of the day will depend on your outreach and your leadership. So again, with my little slide there, do your best and, you know, stay the course and keep calm. I think that's one of the best pieces of advice I can give you right now. But that and if you feel awkward having these conversations one-on-one, I really would try first with some of the donors that you're most familiar with, maybe your top donors, because you know that they are invested in the health and well-being of your program, and let them know what's going on with your program, but do it in a way that understands what they might be going through too. So that's kind of what we're doing here, and I hope some of the ideas that I gave you today are ones that you'll be able to take back with you and be successful with. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Karen, for that presentation. I'm going to go ahead and stop the screen share at this time. And this is where we will now go into questions and answers. This is, as I mentioned, this is very much intended to be an interactive event, and I do very much want to encourage participation. If you'd like to ask a question, do please use the raise hand function in the participant box, and I'll call on you. Or if you'd like, you can send your question to me directly through chat. All of the chat messages do come straight to me, and I'll read that out for Karen. I do have one raised hand here, John Olson. John, if you'll go ahead and ask your question. Thank you.
Hi, thanks, Karen. I appreciate your time and some insight. I'm John Olson with Northern State University, Aberdeen, South Dakota. Just something briefly, I've been trying to get folks back on campus and do these career panels now with, I wanted you to talk a little bit more about the career panels you're having to engage alumni, and how do we get as many student athletes in on those as possible? Because I've used these things in the past as a way to engage alumni, and they're pretty impactful. I'm just wondering about how yours have been, and if you could expand just a little bit more on them, please.
Sure, great question. What we've ended up doing is we've separated we have a young alumni career program, and then we have I don't want to call it old, but outside of 15 years and greater program. What we found is that current student athletes relate better to younger alumni who have recently gone through what they're going through than potentially the alum that's 25, 30 years out, who might be very well known and distinguished in their career, but they are not experiencing the same experiences of our current student athletes. I've also found that the younger alumni need somewhat more, it's a better way to engage with them as well. So what we've done is we have an athletics advisory council made up of approximately 20 alumni that help advise the athletic director, and I'm part of that group. And we've structured that group into 4 major working groups. So we have smaller teams of fundraisers, and we have one specifically for career and alumni advice development for student athletes. And having an alum, in this case, it's I have an alum and an alumna, and they do some outreach on behalf of the department. So it's peer-to-peer from the alumni perspective. And we have a group for the young alumni, and we have a group for general. And when the young alumni group and the career group came together to do a young alumni panel, it was one of our most impactful panels ever. The student athletes, our attendance there really shot up, and I do believe it has to do with because of our post-event surveys, we found that the kids just relate so much better to young alumni. And again, in a format like Zoom, you can do that as well. And some of our coaches now during this period have been utilizing Zoom to do similar things. They're using it as an engagement tool to ask for a few alumni to come back and present to a panel of the participate on a panel to student athletes on the team. And what makes that even more special is that it's limited to that team, and the experiences of those alumni on that team are with those same students. So it even drills down a little bit deeper. So we've done them on the general athletics level, and we've done them by team. The team ones are much more impactful just because of their specificity. But it takes, I would think it would take, if you can enlist the help of one alum to help make asks for others to appear on the panel, I think that's your best bet.
Thank you very much.
All right, and again, if you have a question, do please use the raise hand function in the participant box, or send your question to me directly in chat. Karen, I've got actually, I want to pick up on a thread that you talked about in your presentation. I think in each of the different ideas and in the different ways to engage, I think one of the things that came through is the idea of talking about the value of the athletics program as something that is separate from the immediate need. And I think when I hear the idea of describing the value and communicating the value, in a sense, what you're getting to is you're talking about what is unique about the program, and how do you tell your program story, I think might be, kind of to use some marketing language, how do you tell the story of the program? How have you guys at Wesleyan defined what makes Cardinals athletics unique, and how have you gone about identifying what are those unique aspects that demonstrate the value and tell that story?
Sure, John. Well, for those of you out there that have not listened to Allison's podcast when she spoke about the value of athletics today, I would recommend listening to that, because that gave some great insights from an athletic director's perspective. But at Wesleyan, we really value we call ourselves, we're not just teams and we're not just sports, we're programs. and program is family, and it's developing more than just the on the court, in the arena, on the field, on the pitch. It's more than just the contest. It goes beyond the box score, so to speak. And so our coaches do an excellent job of delivering that message to their student athletes that they're recruiting and what the expectations are in their program, which gets to their parents as well. So that's one audience. But for our alumni, it's also, they like to win. Who doesn't like to win? But we are trying to show more of the student athlete experience at Wesleyan than just what they do on the field. We had a record number of student athletes earn Phi Beta Kappa this year. We have student athletes right now who have initiated a challenge called Athletes Take Action, which is helping folks during part of our Black Lives Matter efforts. And again, this is all student grassroots. So we are trying to take those things that go beyond what we're doing on the field and bring those to light to our audiences and our fans, that the experience at Wesleyan is a true Division III experience, that you are a student and an athlete. And so we take scholarship very seriously. And because of that, we make a concentrated effort to show that multidimensional part of our students in the athletic department. And I think that's what separates us, one. Two, it's the alumni network. And we really take a lot of effort into when we recruit, to let student athletes know when you come to Wesleyan, you're a Cardinal and you're a Cardinal for life. And those other Cardinals that don the jersey before you are there to support you. We have a LinkedIn group for former athletes to connect with student athletes on a career basis. It's called Wesleyan, it's called Athletics Advantage. And the student athletes that join Wesleyan Athletics Advantage know that the other alumni who are also in that group are committed to helping them, whether it's talk about their Wesleyan experience on the field, their collegiate experience on campus, or internships, job advice. And we found that that's been a great tool as well.
All right, thank you so much. Again, if you'd like to ask a question, please use the raise hand function in your participant box, or do send a note through chat. Karen, I do have a note here from Brian Brantley. He says, Karen, thank you. You did a fantastic job on this presentation. So thank you again, also through Brian as well. You did talk about in your presentation the idea of using Zoom and these digital communication methods. And you touched a bit on how they can seem intimidating. How do we use these things? If I may, I want to pull the curtain back just a little bit on what we're doing. What we're doing here, actually, as we were setting up for this call, you're working from home, and you went from your dining room down to your basement, where you had this backdrop ready to go. So while it creates a very professional and sharp presentation, the fact of the matter is that it's a backdrop in a basement. And so my point here is that you don't have to do a lot of big time production value stuff. And you mentioned this also with the postcards, with the idea that it's just a little bit of effort done right. Can you talk a little bit about some of what you guys have overcome from a technical standpoint, where you've said, okay, we need to do this. Oh my gosh, how do we do it? Can you talk a little bit about what the experience, what you guys have experienced at Wesleyan and kind of getting up and running on this stuff?
Sure. Well, I have to give the credit to our faculty coaches. And like many of the folks tuning in right now, that they've gone through, they've had to pivot so quickly on in-person physical education classes, in-person strength and conditioning meetings, in-person film watch with their student athletes, to all of a sudden, everything's remote. So it's been the support they've had from each other. They meet weekly to just exchange ideas as a faculty group in the athletics department. Our head coaches are faculty. Then there's been the the enterprise level of platforms that we're able to use, so that helps as well. But it's really up to the individual to get in there and to learn. I mean, YouTube is great. I don't think you're going to find coaches YouTubing to find defensive schemes for a game, but YouTube is a good tool to learn how to learn a new technology skill, whether it's Zoom or GoToMeeting or some of these other video conferencing platforms. But a lot of it is individual effort, but each supporting each other and knowing, like today, I knew that if for some reason something happened today to interrupt the presentation, I mean, we all know each other and stuff happens. So not to try and take things too seriously. We're not curing any diseases with what we do. And I value these opportunities as a way to exchange information. And if sometimes there's glitches, well, there's glitches in life, but there's nothing we can't overcome.
I have a question here from Stephanie Zonars. I hope I've said that correctly, Stephanie. Karen, thank you. Great information. Have you ever executed an athletics giving day? If so, what are the best practices for success with those?
Oh, well, this is almost prompted. Athletics Giving Day was a panel that I gave at a BOSCA conference a couple years ago. 4 years ago, we started with an Athletics Giving Day. Our institution as a whole tried once to do a giving day and abandoned it. But we picked it up in the athletics department 4 years ago. And I guess quickly, some of the best practices from my experience would be to assemble a team of people that that can work well together. I know the athletic audience. I didn't know social media real well. I found someone within my department in advancement who was our social media person, and I got permission for them to help me. I also got help from our communications office to do some things on the department level. But we set up a plan, and to be thorough with your plan. And then you're not going to experience overnight immediate success. So going into it, we kept our expectations low, but we used it when we first launched as an awareness campaign, basically to let people know that athletics is a philanthropic cause at Wesleyan as well. We just started doing athletics fundraising six or 7 years ago. And we also figured that we would, because of the competitive aspect of how we set up our giving day, we are having the teams compete against each other. We have a women's bracket and a men's bracket, and we've leveled the playing field to be participation based on their alumni base numbers. And it was a true participation effort. It was not a dollars effort. And the first couple years, we extended the giving day. We started with a 12-day giving day, and each subsequent year we shaved off a few days because we felt that in the beginning we needed that awareness of several days of emails and social media pushes to actually get it in front of people. And so over the subsequent years, we've been able to shave off days. We went from 12 to 7 to 3, and this year was our first true 24-hour giving day, and we exceeded our goal with donors and with dollars actually, and it just shocked me what you could do over 24 hours versus what you can do over 12 days. But the behavior of folks for me that I've learned over time is that they really give in that last minute. It always spikes then, but to keep expectations low for the beginning. But the more thorough you can be with your assets and your collateral, especially if you're asking coaches to also send through their bulk email system, if that's something that you use at your institution. I tried to give everything to our coaches as much as possible that was ready for them. They just needed to send it and maybe fill in a couple of their own ad libs to make it their voice, but to give them as much as you can give them ahead of time so that it's the least amount of work for them to do during that day. I think you'll get better results from the staff that you're trying to have help you with everything else that they're doing as coaches, especially for those that are in season. It's very difficult, I think, sometimes when someone's in season to do a major giving campaign. So I would have you look at your calendar too and see what would fit well with your regular fundraising plans. For us, we do a fall hard copy campaign. So we felt that during right before in February, as we transition from winter to spring, practice was the best time to do it for us. It also was an opportunity to squeeze in between what the advancement office was doing. So we had, some sole time with emailing constituents. So I would look at your communications calendar too and make sure not only does it work for the athletic department, but it's not overlapping with other things that the institution might be doing on an enterprise level.
Thank you, Karen. We do have time for probably 2 or 3 more questions. So if you do have a question, please do use that raise hand function or shoot a question in the chat box. Karen, I'll take this moment to go back to the idea of retention. You talked about how it's easier to retain a donor than necessarily to go fishing for a new one. Can you talk a little bit about the idea, again, going back and communicating value at all levels of the process? How do you develop the messaging for that specific retention effort where you're reaching out to a top donor? Are you crafting, literally wordsmithing, crafting those emails yourself? Are you doing that through the institutional advancement office, or is there a third party communications copywriter helping you with that stuff? What are the nuts and bolts of how you're making those types of asks?
Sure. Well, if you're all depending on how you're resourced, you can take different ways. If we had more staff and I had access to a writer, I would engage with that writer. If I had the funds to outsource with a third party, I would probably do that as well. Unfortunately, I don't. And I have a $10,000 a year budget, and I have maybe 9,000 alumni in my solicitable athletic base, over 30,000 in our general solicitable base for the institution. So it's rather small, and I feel like I can do a lot myself because it's small. Things jump out at me a little bit easier when I'm looking at Excel spreadsheets that aren't 40,000 names long. So I'm a big proponent of, if it works for someone else, it can work for me. And I do a lot of Googling and research through LinkedIn. There's some people that I follow that I really like their style of thinking. And I steal, quite honestly. If there's something I read that someone puts out there, I'm like, wow, this is great. I think I can, it might be a Division I piece that I might need to manipulate a little bit to make it fit, my constituents or what I'm able to do. My giving day, I totally stole from Princeton. And Princeton University does it's huge. I mean, they do a dollar campaign, they do a participation campaign, they do a third one too. I can't remember what it was, but I just looked at what they were doing and I said, how can I make this fit what I need to do? And so we just decided to choose to use the the one strategy of using a leaderboard for our men's and women's programs. I actually gave to the Princeton Giving Day so I could get their collateral as a donor and see, what they were saying to people. So for me, that's my third party outsourcing. That's how I outsource to get ideas. I look what other people are doing and try to see how it would fit with what I'm doing. Again, I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage because athletics fundraising is not a priority of the institution. It's a priority of the department. So I don't have as many resources, and the queue I have to get into to ask for some of those resources. I understand that I would get bumped sometimes. So a lot of it, I just say, if I'm going to do it, I need to do it myself. But I really tried to concentrate on the middle of if you think about the giving pyramid, you have the top of your pyramid. I'm really trying to focus on that middle part of the pyramid. With more at the top of the pyramid gets stewarded very well. That's that, 20% of the population, or the 1% of your donor base that gives 80%. But I'm trying to move up those people from the middle of my pyramid to cultivate to higher donors. And if I'm always trying to acquire new donors, when you're acquiring new donors, you're acquiring them most often at small dollar levels. So with a little bit of investment into those donors and trying to retain them, the idea is you'll move them up the ladder, so to speak, to become larger donors. And that's what a major gift officer does, is they cultivate. And I, unfortunately, can only do so much as one person. So I'm trying to use that idea of cultivating middle pyramid donors into larger donors. And we only have one giving society at Wesleyan. It's called the 1831 Society. It's based on our founding year. And so for someone who's a repeat $500 donor, with a conversation, I'm going to try and get them up to 1831 so that they can enjoy the benefits of being in that society. That's where the middle of the pyramid helps with me. So that's the whole idea by retention. The more you can retain a donor, the more apt they are to move up that donor ladder into a higher level in the pyramid to giving more, or becoming a recurring donor, someone that gives monthly for a larger amount. And those are the people that I want to have conversations with.
And we have, for our last question today, from Garrett LaCour. He asks, Karen, is gear for fans part of your fundraising effort? And if so, can you touch on how that's handled?
We do not have a donor acknowledgement program like that with a step up. You give 25, you get a newsletter, you give 100, you get something else. We don't do that. And quite honestly, a lot of it has to do with I can't deal with the quid issues of what the gift is less the cost of the item that you're giving the person as a token gift. That's something that I can't do on my own, and I would need help from the advancement office, and they're not willing to go in that direction right now. That's I know a lot of Division I schools do that, and some Division II schools do that. There are on occasion opportunities and times where a coach will, mail a shirt or, something from the program to a person, but we don't have anything that we push for giving levels in that way. There was a time when I had some applique stickers that, would make it seem like you could stick on a shirt and make it seem like it was embroidered. And the athletic director would stick 2 of those in his thank you letters, 2 for parents, 1 for an alum. But we just recently changed our athletic mark, so that's something I'd have to redo. But the token gifts work with some people. I don't know that tokens are necessarily a driver of people giving. For us, it's really about trying to drive home that message of why you're investing is beyond getting a gift. So we don't do it on a regular basis. I can't keep the inventory either, and it does cost money, and it's money that I don't have. But again, I'll turn every once in a while if someone makes a impactful gift, we'll scrounge up some things already in the department to send to the person, but not as a rule do we do token gifts based on giving.
All right. Thank you so much for that question, Garrett. And Karen, thank you today for your time and insights today. I very much appreciate your willingness to share with folks here in the small college AD community. I want to thank everybody who's been on this call for being here. And I do hope that, that everybody did find this session helpful. Again, the whole point of this is for you to be able to take away information that is relevant, practical, and actionable, and that you have taken some ideas away from this and you can apply to your program. And I will certainly, like everybody else, look forward to seeing those executed in the coming months. If some of these ideas do require creative support that you perhaps don't have the resources for, this is my professional plug. Hartwell Studio Works is, of course, here to help. I'm happy to do a free 20-minute consultation to help you talk through these ideas, bounce some ideas, and figure out what your next steps might be. You can go to my website, click the scheduler, and you can choose the free 20-minute consultation option. If you'd like to follow up with Karen directly, let me give you some information here. You can get Karen through email, through LinkedIn, and on Twitter, and she's happy to connect and to chat with you if you'd like. As she mentioned, I will be sending out her slides from her presentation today and her presentation notes, and so that you have that information directly and you can refer to it again later. The audio from this conversation will be available on my podcast in the next few days, and I'm going to get the video up on YouTube. You'll get some follow-up notes as to when that audio will be available. I'll also add, Karen did mention Allison Kern's Zoom conversation from several weeks ago. That is also available on my podcast page, as are the previous Zoom conversations with Amanda Workman from West Texas A&M and with Devin Crosby from Lynn University. All of that audio is available and you can access that through my podcast. The next small college AD Zoom conversation will be scheduled in the coming weeks. You'll get an announcement. You can get an announcement by going to my website, signing up for my email newsletter, or you can follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn. And I do want to indulge everybody here, if I may. Tomorrow is Brian Brantley's birthday. And Brian is here on this call, and Brian is a great friend, and I am pleased to have this opportunity to embarrass him the day before his birthday to his peers. A very happy birthday to one of my best friends and one of the best guys in the business. And I'm going to catch hell for this when I call him tomorrow for his actual birthday. Thank you all very much for being here. I do appreciate it. I'll look forward to being in touch with you all soon. Have a great day. Thanks for being here, everybody. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to get more great sports branding videos from Hartwell Studio Works, hit the subscribe button on the right of your screen. I'll look forward to seeing you next time.